Hi, it's Mr. Baumgarten here with a video to discuss the two different ways of iterating through a list in Python. So I have here a list of foods: avocado, bacon, cheese, donuts, and eggs. And I've got the simple for loop construct for food in foods. So for all the different foods inside our list, I want to go through it and give me each individual food and print it out. So we will get a printout here of avocado, bacon, cheese, donut, and eggs, one on each line. So what actually happens is we will Python will start, it'll create the list, it'll then come into this line here and see that we are wanting to iterate through a list called foods. It'll look up the first item, create a variable called food, and make it accessible for us inside the indented portion of the code. All right, so whenever the colon appears in Python, it means the next line is going to be indented, and that all the indentation that follows is the code that must be looped as part of the for loop. So we will move on, and avocado will be the first food that will get printed. We will hit the end of our indented code and come back up to the for loop. Python will look inside foods and see if there is anything else in the list, and there is. Bacon exists, so bacon will get set into food, and then we can print that out, and we hit the end and we come back up. Is there anything else in the list? Yes, there is. There's cheese, so cheese will get put into the list, into the variable called food. So we can print that out, come back up. Is there anything else? Yes, donut. Donut gets put into food, and that will get printed out. We'll come back up to the list. Yes, there is something else. Let's put eggs into food, print out eggs. Then we come back up and we look inside the list, and is there anything after eggs? No, there is not. So Python will then skip over all the indented code and carry on with whatever else is inside our program. That is method number one for iterating through a list. Method number two looks a little more complex, and I guess that's because it is, but there are benefits and reasons why we might want to use this method. So again, we've got the same list: avocado, bacon, cheese, donuts, and eggs. And this time we're saying for I in the range of the length of foods. So length of foods will be 5 because there are 5 items in the list. But range will give us the values from 0 up until 1 less than this length. Right? And it just so happens that that is also the same way we access the individual items from the list. So while the overall list has a length of 5, to access the individual items in the list, it's an index location of 0, 1 for bacon, 2 for cheese, 3 for donuts, and 4 for eggs. Index locations always start counting from 0. So this is going to create a variable, and I've called it I. That's just programmer tradition. I for index, or iteration, or whatever you want. Right, and it's going to have the values 0 through 4 as we iterate through the loop. So the first thing that Python will do is it'll look at the length of the list, and it will have the value 5. Then the range operator will put the value 0 and create a variable called I. We will then we hit our colon and we come into our indented code. I am now using the square bracket notation attached to my list name and saying, all right, if I is 0, give me the item inside foods at location 0, which is avocado. So avocado will print. I then hit the end of my indented code, and so Python will come back up, and range will return the next value, which is 1. 1 will get put into I, and then we'll print out foods at whatever is in the foods list at location number 1. All right, so 0 is avocado, 1 is bacon, so bacon will print. We'll then come back into the range function will set the value number, value number 2 will get set to I, we'll print out cheese, the value number 3 will get set into I, and then we'll come into the indented code and we'll print out donuts, and then the value number 4 will get set into I, and we will print out eggs. At that point, the range function will actually cease because it runs up until, but not including, the value that we have inside here. And since length of foods is 5, range will return the value 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so now it will cease and it will skip over all the indented code and look for code that is at the same level as the for loop itself and continue on with our program. Now there are a couple of reasons why we might want to use this method instead of the other. So let's just take a quick look inside a REPL. And you can see here, this is the first method for food in foods, and I'll print it out, and we get all our different foods, bacon, avocado, bacon, cheese, donuts, eggs, and then if I print out the entire list, that's what we get. But sometimes it is helpful to know the number of the item, and we could create our own integer and just say, okay, number, and then increase that ourselves every time we run through the loop. But by the time we're doing that, we might as well just use the other method. Another issue with using this method is if we need to do a change. So what happens if we get into the list and we say, oh, if ever we're going to be healthy, and so if ever someone tries to give us bacon, we're going to swap it out for bananas. All right, so if food is equal to bacon, then I'm going to set food to bananas. All right, and now if I run this, we get avocado, bacon, cheese, donuts, eggs, all right, because we were printing before the if statement. But then the list is still avocado, bacon, cheese, donuts. Well, hang on, did this change take effect? Well, let's just check. All right, and so we can say here, okay, before the if statement, we had food, and then let's check after the if statement. And I'll just put another space here just so it lines up. All right, let's see what happens. Before the if statement, avocado. After the if statement, avocado. Before the if statement, bacon. After the if statement, bananas. Okay, we don't expect anything else to change. But look, when we print out the entire list at the end, whilst here food got updated to bananas, the list itself did not change, because effectively Python is putting a copy of this first value into this variable called food. So this could be useful if you wanted to do some temporary changes to it, perhaps, although I wouldn't recommend it for other reasons. But the thing is that this will not let you change the list, this method. Whereas the other method, we can make changes to the list. So if I put in here for I in range, for the length of foods, right, and now we do foods I every time, right, we are directly accessing the list, directly accessing item 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4 of the list itself. And we will see this time that the list itself has been changed. Right? Bacon got swapped out for bananas. So if you need to make changes to the list, or for some reason it's useful to know the location, the index number of the item you're working through, then this second method is the better way to go. If all you need to do is just get all the individual values, then by all means use the first method. But it is important to know both methods. All right, this is Mr. Baumgarten signing out.